Hello and welcome back to D6 Tabletop. In this video, it's a 40k 2,000 point tournament. I've brought my Necrons again. Different list this time because I felt that the Void Dragon did nothing for the entire time I've used him. So now we've bought more bodies and we're at Atlas Tabletop Gaming in the Gloucester docks again. So let's have a look at my list, have a look at Atlas Tabletop Gaming, and then get into the tournament. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start, the Void Dragon from my previous list is gone. We've got more bodies instead. First is the unit with the Overlord, a Technomancer, and a 10-man unit of Lich Guard. The Overlord has got a Res Orb, and he's got the enhancement giving him a 4-up Feel No Pain. The Res Orb allows them to reanimate in both my command phase and the opponent's. The Technomancer has got the enhancement giving the unit the benefits of stealth, so that's -1 to hit in ranged outside of 12, and the benefits of cover from the same attack outside of 12. He also gives the unit a 5-up Feel No Pain. Another unit of Lich Guard, 10-man with a Lord, and Technomancer, again with the 5-up Feel No Pain from the Technomancer, and the Lord has a Res Orb, so I can keep bringing them back at the start of both command phases again. Next up, we've got 2 units of Warriors, 20 Warriors in each. The first unit has got a Technomancer and a Lord with Res Orb, allowing him to reanimate, again in both command phases. The Technomancer giving that Warrior unit a 5-up Feel No Pain. That unit's got the long range rifles, and then the second unit has got the short range rifles. This unit has got a Plasmancer in, making all critical hits a 5 rather than a 6, and this unit has lethal hits, meaning that they will automatically wound when they shoot, and they've got the slightly more powerful guns. And the Lord's got a Res Orb, because bringing them back. The Plasmancer has also got the Veil of Darkness, allowing me at the end of one of my opponent's fight phases to take them off the board and bring them back in my next turn as strategic reserves. Then of course we've got the Reanimator, because reanimating once is not good enough, so let's add extra dice into those reanimation rolls and keep getting them back on their feet. 3 units of Scarabs. These guys have got no OC, so they can't actually control objectives, but what they can do is do secondaries, and with their really low profile, meaning they won't get a lot of true line of sight, my main plan for these guys is to hide them around the board and use them for the cards so that I can still shoot and move the warrior units as normal. 2 Doomstalkers bring some big guns to the list. I need to have something with some long range shooting, otherwise there's not a lot of punch in this list at all. So at least 2 guns might be able to do something, or at least cause some kind of deterrent against the opposition to make them think before they just move their big tanks into the open. And then finally, I had 30 points left. A Low-Curse Destroyer is 30 points. He is there just to score some points on the board. I don't expect him to do anything. He was more of a case of a gap filler. So that's the list then. The main aim here is bodies, bodies, bodies. I want bodies on objectives, I want bodies scoring points, and I want them to keep getting back up and scoring me points to ultimately, hopefully win the games. So that's the list. Let's have a little look at Atlas Tabletop Gaming, and then we'll get into the tournament. Atlas Tabletop Gaming is based in the Gloucester Keys, right in the heart of Gloucestershire, on the waterfront. It's a lovely little venue, very picturesque, with good parking nearby. I think it cost me a couple of quid for the day on Sunday. It stocks a full range of painting and hobby supplies, as well as Games Workshop, Mantic, Warlord Games, Star Wars, there's loads there, and it's one of my local venues. It's a really nice place to visit if you're in the Gloucester area. They've also got a little cafe there with snacks, drinks, chocolate, cakes, all that kind of stuff, to help you keep going with your gaming. They also run card games, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, stuff like that throughout the week, as well as gaming tables, so you can enjoy any aspect of your hobby, whichever one you partake in. So that's Atlas Tabletop Gaming. Let's get in to Game 1. Right, Game 1. I'm playing Kit and his Tyranids. He's got the new Norn Emissary. I don't really know what it does, so that was interesting. But we are playing Sweeping Engagement, Take and Hold, and Sweep and Clear. Important one for me here is that we get to have sticky objectives, so it means I'm not going to have to commit to leaving Lich Guard on objectives to hold them, which could be big for me. So after deployment was done, I won the roll-off and I got first turn. First thing first, Lich Guard onto objectives, advance everything, get them up the table, get them onto the objectives and hold them. Warrior blobs as well, because they're OC 40 when they're on something, which is great for me for holding them. And then you pretty much stay there and tempt Kit to come on with his Tyranids. He does, and unfortunately Termagants or Holmagants are no match for Lich Guard, so they get sliced up into Lizard Skew. The big boys, however, are another problem. Now, because of sticky objectives, I was able to capture the objective with the Lich Guard on the left, and then carry on moving down the table and bring them into the centre, meaning that I had a really strong presence in the middle of the board and able to hold most of his army at the other end of the table, limiting his ability to score whilst maximising my ability. Due to sticky objectives and me having a couple of characters still hidden in the back of that back corner building, he had to leave his Norn emissary on that objective to keep him scoring that VP, which meant that most of the threat of that unit was not used in the game other than destroying the warrior unit on the right. This allowed me a bit more freedom with my other units, and I just kept charging the Lich Guard into anything that would tie them up and keep him away from the centre or the objectives to allow me to keep scoring. Whilst this is happening, the Scarabs are running around, scoring the secondary points for me. They're doing me engage, they're doing investigate signals, they're doing teleport Homer, they're doing everything. It is just down to them scoring me points, the Lich Guard tying him up, and the Warriors doing what they can. Really good game. At the end of it, final scores being 100 to the Necrons, 66 to the Tyranids. It was a really good game, really fun game, and Kit was a great opponent to play against. So now, let's move on to Game 2. Game 2 then, onto Jack and his Aeldari. His list is bikes, 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 and some Walk Spiders and some Scorpions. This was a tough game. Going into it, neither of us knew whether I could stand more models back up than he could shoot, or whether I could put enough damage output out to limit what he'd have to move around the board. So deployment, we're playing Search and Destroy, Priority Targets, and Chosen Battlefield. Due to Chosen Battlefield, we end up setting up our own objective markers. As you can see, we've both gone with the same idea here. That is, we've got the one in our deployment zone and the one as close as possible to our deployment zone, as we both want to try and maintain our castle. Me, so that I can keep reanimating, and Jack, so he can just keep shooting everything. Really tough game in this one. Jack's list has got a lot of anti-vehicle in it, so my big guns and the reanimator were the first things to shoot. Now obviously with the reanimator gone, I lose a lot of what my list works around, so my reanimations were not as strong as they could have been, or they should have been with the reanimator. Really smart play there, because I get nearly twice the amount of reanimation wounds back with that reanimator. So really good play in getting rid of it. We both managed to score really well on this. Jack took the approach of, rather than spreading out fire, to double down on one unit at a time. Completely right play with this when you're playing Necrons. There's no point putting a few shots into each unit. You either kill a unit outright or you don't bother at all. So he put his entire army into a Lich Guard blob, deleting them, and then into the other Lich Guard blob afterwards. So leaving me with just 2 units of warriors to try and keep scoring points. I managed to score some decent secondaries with the Scarabs before they eventually got deleted, and I think I managed to score as much points as I could before I was running out of units. Primary in this one was only holding 2 though, so I managed to keep maxing primary until the end because I had 2 units of warriors on each objective, meaning that I still have more OC regardless. I just didn't have enough units or maneuverability towards the end to score enough points, with the final score being 100 to the Aeldari and 81 to the Necrons. So still a close game, still a really good game. It's always a good game against Jack. So, moving on to Game 3. So, last game of the day, Game 3. I'm playing Zach and his Imperial Guard. And just look at the amount of models on the table. I thought I brought a lot of models, but Zach has brought so much it pretty much fills up his entire deployment zone. He's got 1 Baneblade chassis, 3 of the Little Knights, and the rest of it is just troops. The sheer amount of bodies on this table is ridiculous. We're playing Dawn of War, Sights of Power, and Vox Static. Vox Static makes the command reroll and the New Order stratagems 2 CP, so that could play a big part in this game. Going into this, my main plan is to avoid that Baneblade. It's going to pretty much one-shot most things, especially my big guns, so I need to use them to try and take out the Little Knights, but avoid them being shot at by the tank. Lich Guard into the middle, secure the objectives, warrior blobs onto the other 2, and see how far we can get. Scarabs will do as much as they can for as long as they can, and it's going to be all about trying to keep him off of the objectives, because he actually has more OC than me in this case, because he can make his infantry OC3 each rather than my OC2. Luckily I get first turn, so it's a case of advancing everything again, get into the middle, and then scoring those points. Now in this game I run the Lich Guard as a double blob in the middle because I need to use them to cut down his options on movement of those knights. I need to create choke points and hold them up so that they can't get past the line of Lich Guard to get into my more squishier units, or to get shots off on the reanimator or the big guns. This does work, and I managed to hold pretty much the entire right side of the table with Lich Guard, with the big guns popping off 2 of the knights throughout the game, and the 3rd one being destroyed by Lichguard, who just held it up in combat. I ignored that giant tank for the entirety of the game. I did nothing to it. It did shoot and it did damage quite a few of my units, but thankfully they kept coming back because of reanimations. And it was just a case of trying to keep him off of objectives so that I could score. The left objective, he overwhelmed with lots of units, which meant that I eventually lost it all, and just kept the 3 on the right hand side of the table, which was enough for me to score the points and win the game, with the final result being 88 to the Necrons, 52 to the Astra Militarum. Great game. I've played Zach before. Last time he ran 2 Baneblades. It's quite weird having 2 armies that bring troops back, mine through reanimation and him through reinforcement strat, which costs him 2 CP, but once a unit's been destroyed, it can just come back to the table. So now I know how frustrating it is.
So there we have it. 3 games of 40k. 2nd best placing I've ever had overall so far. Really happy with how it turned out. Just missed out on a few points and did a few silly things here and there in some of my games that cost me the lead on the board. But yeah, really good day. Really enjoyed the list. I think it's much better this way. It still hasn't got much punch, but much better at scoring points, and that's how you win the games.
If you like this kind of content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and put a comment below. Until the next one, we'll see you again. Goodbye, and there's Carl in the background.